Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2 of APEX 2023 Conference Istanbul. So, it's not a traditional beginning, Stu, as you might have noticed. But I'm going to be starting with you, actually. Just a quick interaction with you, distinguished participants, and I will be asking you your top 3 favorite moments during your stay here in Istanbul. Was it the Archaeological Museum or the Bosphorus? Or maybe all, because it's not only about exchanging ideas and sharing information, but as we stated, this APEX conference is about getting to know the local culture and the industry as well. So, Stu?
Do I have 3? You want 3?
Well, 3 or 1. What was the most mesmerizing moment for you, for example?
Well, in no particular order. Some of the historical sites here in Istanbul are absolutely fascinating. So the Blue Mosque, the Archaeological Museum yesterday, and the Palace yesterday were just absolutely fascinating. Last night's concert was mesmerizing. I really enjoyed that. And then meeting my colleagues that I haven't seen in a year has been really enjoyable. So those are my 3.
Excellent, excellent. So I have a question for you, Mr. Olmedo. What was the Sting song that our singer performed? Which Sting song did she perform last night?
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, she was a very nice singer.
Okay.
He has a lot of experience and knowledge about bossa nova and samba.
Yeah, bossa nova, yeah.
Quizás.
Quizás. Okay. So, what do you like about Istanbul so far the most?
This is a very nice historical place, and it is amazing to have the opportunity to visit, for example, the Archaeological Museum and Hagia Sophia. That is more than 1,500 years. It's really impressive.
Correct, correct. Thank you very much. And Cecilia, would you mind sharing your top moments about Istanbul?
Okay, Juan Carlos stole my song, so it was Quizás. The Bosphorus tour was unbelievable. So beautiful.
Did everyone like Bosphorus?
Oh, yeah. And then Topkapi was very interesting. The guide was wonderful. He's playing very well. And the place was so beautiful. And for the third one, being here with this energy, it looks like energy markets operators, because we feel the good energy here. So for me, that has been great.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Cecilia, Carlos, and Stu. Thank you very much for sharing your moments with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. The day 2 of APEX 2023 Conference Istanbul, and we are going to be starting off our conference with a Gold Partners remark. So please give a warm welcome, Senior Vice President of Hitachi Energy, Mr. Oscar Tilbach. Oscar.
Good morning. First of all, I must say the pronunciation of my name is first class, so I appreciate that. So didn't Americanize it, so true originate. So that's a thumbs up for that. So also, thank you for the organizer and everything for last night. That was a tremendous evening. For walking around the history of the palace, and also been able to have a dinner outside by the museum and actually get access to the museum. That was a tremendous museum. That was, a museum that I've never seen before. So that was really, really nice. So anyway, so let's get started. That's a morning introduction, and then we're going into the breakout session. It will be pretty exciting this last day in Istanbul. So first of all, just to introduce myself, my name is Oscar Tilberg. I'm located in Houston, Texas, even if my heritage is from Sweden, therefore the name pronunciation. But first, just want to tell who is Hitachi Energy. I think it's a name that maybe is not that well known, and it's a company that has been changing names a little bit the last few years, so I just want to put that on the map. So name, the Hitachi Energy is been called, from looking back years here, it's originating from ABB. And a few years ago, ABB decided to focus more on industrial customers. So the utility part of ABB, we're looking for a new partner to partner up with. And Hitachi was the company that they started a joint venture with. And then about a little bit over a year ago, Hitachi acquired the full part of it. So the Hitachi Energy is basically what's former called in ABB power grids. That basically consist of the HVDC, SVC, FACTS, substation, of course the transformers, all the high voltage product, but also the grid automation and all the software we do for utilities. So that's pretty much what is Hitachi Energy within Hitachi. So I just want to put that on the map so anyone confused what is Hitachi Energy is basically what the former utility part of ABB is transformed into. So what is, just shortly we're going to talk about today is that, in a space that has been pretty, utilities, been very conservative and, slow moving. And I think had a luxury to be a bit slow moving and not, being able to live in a pace that felt comfortable. And I think we all recognize that that's not the case anymore. Things are moving fast. Technology is incredibly fast in terms of come up with new innovations and inventions. And you're looking at a little bit as well on the world and how it's changing. And I know 2050 is many years ahead, but it's coming fast. And I think many things we see on this slide here actually is just incrementally, in changing, looking at 2030, is already there. It's going to drive changes for us. But you're looking at things, for example, Internet of Things. You're looking at, we already now feel we're connected, but you're looking at in 2050, pretty much everything in the world is going to be connected. Your lights and, you go outside, your traffic signals, everything is going to be, connected and be able to have a lot of devices that is basically sensors to be able to provide data. So another thing, of course, is going to be, the population. We're going to grow, which also can put a lot more demand on you as providing electricity to everybody. So, and looking at people moving, right? We see a lot of urbanization, and that's going to keep continuing. So we're looking at 2050, close to 70% of the population now is going to live in an urban area, which also is going to put a lot of demand on the utility industry to be able to support that. So, and not forget, the electric vehicles, EV, is going to expand dramatically. So, I mean, we see already now a big growth, but in 2050, probably majority of people are driving around in something is not what we see today with fossil fuels. So what does it mean? So I think for all of us is that, we can't do this alone. We can't as a vendor can try to help you solve. You as a utility or a market operator, you can't do this alone as well. So we got to do this in a partnership and make sure that we build a plan together on how to achieve and how to support it. So it's not only, it's about making sure that we see that the future power system is basically going to be a system within the system. And to be able to do that, we need to strengthen it to be able to support, the incredible increase of intelligence that's going to be and the growth of population. We're going to be able to expand in terms of how we use it, and then evolve, which I think is going to be the part that is going to be tricky. Because in here, we're going to need to be able to not only evolve of how we operate, but also how we use the software to be able to support it. So, but I think the key thing here is that we know what we need to do, and I think if we do it together, we're going to make it happen. So a little bit on what we are. So in terms of helping you from a software perspective, I think many times, the last 14 years, we've all talked about, the IT-OT integration. It's been a lot of discussions, and I think it's not a lot of progress that has happened there. There's a lot of, smaller business process that has been helped. I mean, be able to use data that's what traditionally sits in the corporate side versus the operational side. But we see, I think now with new technology evolving and also the amount of sensors being installed is pushing us to drive this a lot faster and be able to support it. I mean, it can be simple things like now you start, from like a transmission operator, if you start measuring, your health of your transformers, sure, you can bring that in, you can visualize it, you can see how you do maintenance, but that data can be used for other purposes too. For example, you can bring in that data being part of when you do N-1 analysis and making sure that, it's not only looking at, the traditional N-1, but also bringing the health of your equipment to take that part of the analysis. Vegetation management, you're starting to do a lot more analysis, a lot more data comes in from to be able to do smart vegetation management. That part now can also be bringing into the control room to be able to better predict and make sure you have less outages that is caused by vegetation management. So, and it comes also to enable, you to serve your customers, be able to provide all this information out to the field. I think there's been always a challenge that the people out in the field, the crews, have very limited access of information, and they always rely on calling back into the office or to the control room to find out what's really going on. And I think now the technology is there to support, to visualize what's actually happening, making sure you have a single pane into your whole network and see what's actually happening and making sure they can make decision out in the field, not rely on the control room. So, and I would think another thing that is, and we've heard in the presentation this week, is we get new technologies, you got artificial intelligence that is supporting all the application I was talking about. But I think one thing that we all know is the world is changing, the power system is evolving, there's a big change on how things is going to be operated, which means also that we got to have to change and embrace the technology that is already here, where we're looking at, back to being conservative. We need as both support from regulatory and you and us as a vendor to be able to support and embrace it. Because if we are not making sure we enable you with solutions, you will not be able to take advantage of what's coming. So I think one piece here is you're looking at how we currently are using the software is very much on-premise. We're using, right now, probably a virtualized environment, but what we need to do to make sure that you take advantage of your business process changes and support of the functionality requires is actually be able to not have technology being your limiting factor. Because I think right now, we all go through a process where we as a vendor, we always say, hey, we got some new functionality available that we want you to take advantage of. For you, that means a technology refresh. A technology refresh is basically limiting you to take functionality improvements, making sure you do what's your regulatory body has been required to do. And what we as a vendor want to make sure we eliminate that, right? Because in the end, technology is there to support you, not there to limit you to implement new requirement, new functionality. So the world is going to shift that instead of doing technology refresh, is basically continuously updates. And I think that's something we as a vendor is something that we need to provide you with, because we see a lot of our customers, they say, hey, can we delay a technology refresh because we have a tremendous amount of projects that we need to do to adapt the market to support what's actually required, both from our stakeholders and from regulatory bodies. And I think if we're not going and embracing, the new technology like microservices, making sure we enable using, cloud, we're not going to get there. So, and I think it's a key thing for us as a vendor to support you, and we try to work together and making sure we embrace and find a way to utilize it. So there's a lot of application already available in, to use that. So just because it's microservices or using Kubernetes cluster and all those, fancy things, doesn't mean everything needs to be run on the cloud. It can be hybrid, can be on the premise, but start using those technologies, making sure the technology is not an hurdle for you as a user. So, just finally, I want to leave to that, and then we'll hand in over to the sessions, the panels. It's just again that I want to make sure, we work hard, we make a lot of investment, but if we work in isolation and we think we're doing things that are maybe not the value for you, then in the end, we're not going to be successful. So the key thing for us is we work together. If we're going to solve the future, we're going to have to collaborate. We have to talk. We have to make sure we understand the key business issues and that we are prioritizing in the right way. So to be able to achieve a sustainable future and make sure we support, in the end, the environmental, we got to do it together. So, but that's the key message, all right? So, if we're going to solve it, we got to do it together. So, for that, hand it over to the next one.
Thank you so much, Oscar. Mr. Tibak. Thank you very much. That was quite a remark by our goal partner, Hitachi Energy, and we would like to thank Mr. Tilbach and also Hitachi Energy for being a goal partner to our annual conference, advancing a sustainable energy future for all. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the APEX 2023 Conference Istanbul, hosted by Exist. So, Exist, I think, has been a great host. So, why don't we take a moment to thank that great team led by our distinguished General Manager of Exist, Mr. Ahmet Türkoğlu. So, a great team of people doing their best, putting their greatest efforts for you to have a great time. So, let's thank Exist one more time, ladies and gentlemen. And now let's proceed with the first panel of the day and the third of the conference, which is going to be focusing on what is required to ramp up markets for green hydrogen. What role can energy exchanges play? So first and foremost, please welcome the moderator of the panel, representing European Energy Exchange, Mr. Daniel Vrage. And please welcome our panelists representing Enerjisa Production, Mr. Emre Erdoğan. From Central European Gas Hub, Mr. Frederick Benthaler. Representing Erich Holdings, Mr. Hasan Ali Yaraş. And representing Zero Emissions Traders Alliance, Zeta, Mr. Jan Heisman. Mr. Vrage, the floor is yours.
Do you hear me? Oh, yes, perfect. So good morning also from my side. Thank you again for this great evening yesterday, which we really enjoyed. And now it's a special pleasure to talk about hydrogen, and maybe I give you some insight into the work of APEX. So actually the board is meeting once a month, always at a time which is quite late for me because I'm based in Germany. So every month on a Wednesday at 9 p.m. I have to remind myself, oh, there's the APEX call. And then I have to get off bed and go to the computer. But it's always a big pleasure to see you and our other board members. And what are we discussing there? We are mainly discussing this conference. And we're discussing our panels. So it's such a pleasure that after 1 year, then finally you are somewhere on the globe in a room and you're finally presenting your panel. So today it's hydrogen. You might wonder, hope or hype? I think it's in between. There's a lot of hype. I think there's not one company who's not looking into hydrogen. It's a must today that you have something ongoing on hydrogen. But I think there's also a lot of reality already to that topic. So, and we want to kind of talk about that. Where are we today? Where do we stand with hydrogen markets and how are they going to develop? So when I started to look into hydrogen markets about 2 years ago, it was from the beginning an absolutely fascinating topic because it's a new commodity. I mean, I see into your faces and I see that you have all created markets over the last decades and now there is something new. And it's fascinating. Frederick and I, we discussed that yesterday. It's to be there at the very first beginning when we are all starting this new market and we are able to shape it. So, what is it about? I think maybe you can show my first slide. It's only one slide, don't you worry. So, you see there's one thing which is in the middle, and that is the price signal. So we are talking a lot about the production of hydrogen. We are talking a lot about consumption of hydrogen. We are talking a lot about transport of hydrogen and of storage. But I think something which is often forgotten, especially by politicians and regulators, but also by the industry as such, is that there is something in the middle which is missing. How are you going to allocate what you are actually producing and consuming? How do you decide who gets what and what is the price? It's a very easy question I will ask my panel today as well. What is the price for hydrogen? And there's no easy answer to this easy question. So why do you need that price signal? It's for allocating who gets what, but it's also to give an investment signal, to invest into this new market. Of course, it's necessary to have subsidies in the beginning, so we will talk about subsidies today as well. But subsidy is not a business model which is sustainable. You cannot base your investment decision on the fact that for the rest of that project we will receive a subsidy. So you have to think, where does that bridge, let's call it a bridge, where does that bridge lead to? Into nowhere, or into a future where you have investments which are based on price signals and are based on markets. So that is really what I think is really necessary to consider. And then all the other things are equally important, but without the price signal at the heart of it, I would argue all the rest does not work. So we have to consider that, and we will talk about that today. And maybe then to think a little bit further, once you have that price signal, how do you create that price signal if there's no market? So that's also a question we are going to discuss. A price signal without a market, does that work? Is that possible? But once you have a price signal, what is the market? You will have a physical market. You will trade hydrogen. Will it be national trading? Will it be on a European level? Will it be global? How is that all interlinked? So I think a lot of things have changed there also due to the war against Ukraine, that we are now in a situation where hydrogen and green hydrogen is not only a way how to decarbonize our world, but also a new way and a necessity to diversify our energy supply. There is no other choice, really, if you want to make sure that in the future we are also having sufficient energy supply. So these are also global questions which are really playing into our discussion today. And so it's so great that we are here in Turkey and especially in Istanbul at the crossroads between Asia and Europe, a big trading nation. So this is also a place where I could imagine a lot of hydrogen development will happen in the future, but we will hear from our panelists in a minute. So with these opening remarks, I would like to close. And now we have short introductory remarks by all our panelists, and then I have, of course, prepared some questions, but I would really like to ask you to get involved, to ask your questions, to make it as active as possible. With these words, thank you very much, and I hand over to Emre. Thank you very much.
All. The introduction section, I think this will be. So I'm working for Enerjisi Üretim. Enerjisi Üretim is a joint venture of German utility E.ON and Turkish conglomerate Sabancı Holding. And our main focus for business is producing electricity and trading energy. Until very recently, our activities were limited in Turkey, but for the last 1 year, through the Enerjisi commodities companies, we are also trading in different locations of the world, actually. Thank you. In Turkey, we have more than 3,700 megawatts of installed capacity from 5 different sources actually. And especially the renewable part, that is what we are dedicated for our upcoming investments, especially since 2020. So in the very near future, we will be more than 5,000 megawatts, and all the additional capacity will be coming from renewable resources. Wind is going to be the main investment area for us. And for the last 2 years, we added the green hydrogen production into this business areas. And why I started with the production backbone, because for the production of green hydrogen and all green hydrogen byproducts, the main strength is having the enough renewable resources. So everything is starting from the renewable production actually. And very briefly, what we are doing regarding the green hydrogen, actually we are just following up the international business. So we are trying the distributed generation, then trying to set up some smaller hubs, and then the bigger production and trading will come. Last year, we get a donation from the Horizon Europe, and we started the investment for the Green Hydrogen Valley project in Bandırma region, in one of our power plants. So our target is to finish the investment of green hydrogen production in the amount of 500 tons per year, which will be totally consumed in the same region. So from the distributed generation, now we are shifting to more like a hub structure. Since the amounts are still small, but the learnings are quite big. So now we are testing the appetite of, first of all, the domestic customers and partners regarding the green hydrogen and green hydrogen byproducts, trying to test this price indicatives, handling or trying to solve all these challenges regarding the local regulations, how to produce it, how to store it, how to transport it. So for the last 2 years, I cannot say that we have achieved a huge volume for trading and production, but we have a quite big learning that I think we will come back to your questions, actually.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my name is Frederick Bernteler. I'm representing today Central European Gas Hub. We are a hub operator in Austria. We operate the virtual trading point for Austria, and we do this for more than 15 years now. And in this capacity, we also have a lot of know-how about how to trade gas, how to dispatch gas. And in this capacity also, we have a big interest to work for the energy transition. And I think it was very well said in the keynote speech at the beginning, it's going to be a collective effort. Nobody is going to do it alone. And in this collective effort for the energy transition, we also want, in a way, to play our part. And that's where we have, in a way, developed the ZEC Green Hydrogen Index. As Daniel said before, markets don't work without prices. And we have developed an index that, in a way, will give an investment price signal for the market area. And we are in Austria in a special situation. We have no ports, and we are a landlocked country. So we will not see these shipments coming in directly to Austria. So for us, it was, in a way, important to show what a production of hydrogen could mean for Austria. And here, in a way, we have started to work on something that is the ZEC Green Hydrogen Indices. So it's not one, but it's 4. And we have, in a way, developed a suite of price signals for the production cost of hydrogen in the Austrian market. Of course, in this area, regulation is also innovation to a certain extent. So we have, in a way, created different shades of price signals depending on how much green electricity is used to produce the green hydrogen. And what we've heard so far from the market is that these price signals are perceived to be something that is very helpful for project developers because in a way that gives them a certain information and also security when they calculate bankability for their projects. So when they go to the bank, when they make their excellent spreadsheets, they have something that they can show to their stakeholders how much potentially the cost of production for hydrogen could be, and this information is not coming from themselves, but it's coming, so to say, from an outside, from a trusted source. Regulation is key for the energy transition, and there is in Europe the RED II directive that plays a crucial role, and we have one renewable hydrogen index that fully incorporates all the rules that have to be adhered to so that the hydrogen is green under EU rules. And probably that's one of the indices that is most appreciated by stakeholders. But altogether, we have here different price signals and that can be used by stakeholders. And what we want to do for the future is that we, of course, work with our partners and with the market to have also more and better data quality as we go forward and as we see first projects to be realized in and around Austria.
Hello everyone, so my name is Ali Aras. I represent ERI Holdings. We have been involved in renewable energy project development for the last 8 years. This has been at first in Turkey, and then since 2019 we've been developing solar and renewable projects, other renewable projects in the Balkans, in Greece, in Italy. And recently, by the way, about 2 decades ago, in 2003, I was studying hydrogen in Sweden as a master's student, and Daniel had said something very interesting at the beginning. He said, "Is this a hope or a hype?" I had deemed that there was too much hope, too much hype and hope, but not something very real, so I had moved on to renewables after my master's degree, studied wind and solar. And currently at ERI, we have 2 ongoing projects. One of them is in Turkey, and the other one is happening in Paraguay. We have made an agreement with Pash Global. They have provided the possibility of access to large-scale hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives traders. We have had very fruitful conversations with Trafigura, and we learned a lot about the scale of what to develop. Primarily, we're project developers. We are aiming to create either hydrogen or derivatives production. So we are trying to figure out what would be the right product. Is this ethanol? Is this going to be green ammonia? This is something we are trying to understand. The project in Turkey has so far taught us a great deal. And we also learned that we were aiming for a scale that was too small for the whole trading market. So we are trying to figure out how the regulation can allow a larger size development for us. So Turkey, I think, has a great deal of potential, and maybe we'll come to this point later on, but there has been 2 periods of very rapid development, first in wind energy, and then following that there was a great success lasting 3 to 4 years on solar energy development market in Turkey. And we have pretty much proven I think that given the right regulatory signals, there is a real possibility of being able to develop great amounts of green hydrogen here, as well as its derivatives. Turkey has a very good, very adaptive production capability. Companies such as Enerjisa really has massive potential. So we are very hopeful about being able to develop hydrogen projects here in Turkey in the coming years, but obviously there needs, the key part is price signals and regulatory, the right regulatory atmosphere that fosters development. Currently, that regulatory atmosphere, there are hydrogen strategy initiatives and hydrogen groups, all of them try to lead the authorities towards the favorable atmosphere for developing projects. And I really believe that in the next 1 or 2 years, there will be significant developments in Turkish hydrogen markets. So what basically I just mentioned, the strengths we have, shortly we might come to this later on, but I think a feed-in tariff or a contract for differences would be key for the internal market. For the external market, we need, again, the price signals, but also the financial capability to reach sufficient quantities that are internationally traded. Because as I see it, smaller projects are only going to be supplying hydrogen for the internal market in Turkey, and it requires much larger scales to start Turkey's involvement in an international market. So, yeah. Thank you. I should pass this on.
Yes. My name is Jan Heitzmann. I'm here for ZETA, the Zero Emissions Traders Alliance, which is a new non-for-profit initiative linking the markets of production. And here we're thinking mainly of the MENA region with Europe, where there is a lot of work done in Europe. There's great initiatives done by EEX, by CEC, we just heard it. It's great to see these initiatives because they require creativity. Whenever you start a new market, it's always a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have the commodity, if you don't have the physical underlying, it's difficult to actually price it, it's difficult to find liquidity, difficult to generate liquidity. But we've also seen with other commodities it has worked. You just need initially subsidies. Let's face it, we just need state funding. You mentioned CFDs, you mentioned feed-in, or PPAs have been mentioned, so these are all alternatives. The feed-in tariffs obviously are the ones that are the most expensive for the taxpayer. Not every country is has the same, call it healthy financial situation, so may not be a system that works everywhere. But it has certainly worked for some things, notably in Germany. Probably the feed-in tariff was the major deal breaker for bringing renewable into the 40 to 50% of the generation mix. So yes, it can help, but it comes obviously at the price that you then also need to take aware of. So ZETA is a new organization. It comes with the starting point that ultimately the green molecules, and here hydrogen is probably one of the top products, they are global markets. So ultimately we don't need only work done in Europe at the consumption end, you need also to actually standardize certificates, you need to standardize contracts, you need to basically link up the places where these commodities are produced and with the ones that are going to consume it. Because obviously if you want to have the renewable benefit out of a certificate, for example, you then need to make sure that the certificate that is, for example, issued in Oman is then also recognized in Brussels as being equivalent to any certificate that would come from an issuer in Europe. So I think this is a little bit the idea of ZETA. And we believe, and it was already said by various speakers here, at the end of the day, you need investment signals. Prices deliver these investment signals. There is nothing else but that. So we need a price signal. Price signal is key to give the investor the security and he needs in order to take the investment position. That's it. He just goes into a long position market. He needs to somewhere also then offload some of the price risks. And the long-term contracts are not a solution. We have seen this in gas. We're not really starting from zero. We have already all the experience that comes notably from the natural gas market. So we have seen that long-term contracts are not optimal. They're suboptimal. We need much more flexible solutions, short-term contracts, in order to create the liquidity that we want to develop. And I think this only can be really enabled through first, a price signal that is reliable, that has also credibility with it. And credibility of a price signal is directly connected to the underlying. So ultimately, it is all a chicken and egg problem, which ultimately will be solved because there will be more and more of that hydrogen coming on the market. There's huge projects which are currently being realized, and there is obviously the question how to actually create the logistics and how to create, let's say, the possibilities to market that. Yeah, obviously, this was a little bit the summary. We need, let's say, fungible and standardized certificates, contracts. I'm not sure whether Europe is the good example for it. I find that the RED II reform is rather disappointing from a trader's point of view. It makes things very difficult to trade across borders, and this within a market which is meant to be a single European energy market. So what we really have created so far is a very fragmented situation that makes it very difficult for platform operators, for exchanges such as the EX or ZEC or others, to actually create that regional market that is needed. So ultimately you end up with national markets where you can then have a very limited liquidity developing from it. So that is really the breakthrough, is the fungibility of certificates that simply work everywhere and that can also be then create the market confidence. So we need that stable framework. I currently think it is not there. That attracts, let's say, the growth of hydrogen, but also other green molecules in Europe. It is too much additionality which has been required here. And in reality, we need another big push in order to get that done in Europe. But obviously, once again, hydrogen is not a regional market. It's a global market. It's a shipped market. It sort of will resemble to a certain extent the LNG markets. So in reality, it needs a global understanding, and I think this is also where Zeta then wants to play a role in. And this is my last slide, but it actually explains it all. In reality, what you have here is a new commodity. A new commodity doesn't need necessarily new rules from scratch. It can actually build on what is already there. So in reality, what you need is a price discovery mechanism that works based on offer and demand and nothing else. You need a helping mechanism in form of state subsidies. PPAs, for example, were mentioned. These are good instruments because they allow optimization over the years. They're better than tax systems, which simply or feed-in tariffs that in reality are very costly to the communities that need to carry them. And you need obviously the certificates that need to be fungible, meaning tradable, usable as green credits, and that needs to be done on a reliable basis of common parameters, because ultimately you then allow greenwashing to happen that destroys the system and credibility of the whole thing. So it needs to be solid, but it also needs to be the same. So it is no room for 50 different standards because then you fragment again the liquidity which you urgently want to actually create. So, and that's it really. So I think also my contribution here would be one thing. Look at the European systems that currently has been already mentioned. RED II needs another delegated act, delegated, but maybe not a big act. We need another act that actually fixes some of the issues that were there, that are still in there, that need to incentivize trading more, make the green certificate something that goes across the borders, make it also independent from the underlying commodity, not just connected to it. To me, it is an enigma, while the gas from a cow in Tyrol that is then put into the pipeline and that gas is then brought to Germany, that this gas all of a sudden becomes normal natural gas. There's nothing bio in it anymore. It's just deleted through the fact that it crosses a border. This is obviously, you then can come to the conclusion, what is the cow doing differently in Austria, different from, for example, the neighboring cows in Bavaria. So ultimately, here needs to be a flawless, let's say, transaction path that needs to be created. But obviously then for hydrogen, there are the national schemes, but also there needs to be hydrogen relies on logistics. So in reality, you need cooperation between shippers, logistics providers, platform operators, producers. So it really is something you as a community need to get together or risk not to construct it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Emre, Ali used that nice wording, what you said, regulatory atmosphere. This is a nice wording for a regulatory framework and what you expect from regulators. And we heard now from all of you that actually the requirements for what is green is complicated. And in Europe, it took us more than, Jan, how long, 2 or 3 years to come up with RED II, delegated act defining what is green, and we are not yet there. But I would also underline, at least we have now a standard. I think that's the message. And maybe for you are not familiar with that, why does it take so long and why is it so complicated? Because there is a competition. There is a competition for what you use green electricity, for what you use renewables. And as we have heard yesterday, we are electrifying our planet. So the question is, first, where do you get all that renewable energy from? And then second question is, what do you use it for? So there is still the fear that green hydrogen will be produced and other sorts of consumption can not use the renewable energy. So that is one of the problems why it took so long and why it's now so complicated. And the second thing is also important, and then I come to Turkey, is of course European players, they want a playing field, level playing field. So they don't only want, now it's a sophisticated part, they don't only want that RED II applies to Europe, no. They want that RED II applies globally. They don't want to have a disadvantage compared to imports of green hydrogen to Europe. So they say, look, you need to have the same standards. So now the EU is asking that if you import or export hydrogen to Europe, that you comply with very sophisticated, very complicated standards developed for Europe, which are not really applicable to all regions of this world. So we will see a lot of problems there coming up in the future. So I turn now to you. I don't know, have you looked into these requirements? Because you also said in our first talk that you considered also exporting green hydrogen to Europe. Are these requirements something you could comply with? And maybe more general, what does it take from the off-taker side, from Europe, for instance, to make your projects work?
Yeah, that's the difficult part, because for a while we were really following what will be the regulations, what will be the description of the green. And there's also some questions we couldn't still find the answer yet. The resource of the water as well, because if you are talking about the green hydrogen, it is the renewable electricity and the water. Is going to be allowed to use the fresh water? It should be the seawater, how it will be prioritized and so on, because unfortunately, for example, Turkey, we are surrounded by the seas, but the freshwater resources are not as strong as north part of Europe, for example. For the time being, what I can say, just because Turkey have a vast amount of renewable resources, producing the green electricity as it is accepted as green is not a big deal. So because we haven't fully utilized the wind and solar capacity yet in Turkey, so we can handle the additionality clauses and also daily netting of the production and the consumption of the electricity. And as our company, as I said, we are now developing more than 1,500 megawatts of renewable energy, so it will help us to develop a quite good and strong backbone for producing green electricity.
The goal? Oh, The goal is really to produce for internal consumption in Turkey or also for exporting, or both?
Actually both, because for the time being, the demand in Turkey for green hydrogen is not as high compared to Europe. So that's why for the next, let's say, 5 years and so on, Europe is looking like a more appealing target as a customer for production in Turkey. But after a while, as you know, the cement, steel, they are the major exports of Turkey for Europe as well, so that to be competitive enough to export our goods from Turkey to abroad, we should be looking for the ways to decarbonize our industries in our major export areas, which requires electrification as well as using green hydrogen as an import for decarbonization of these products. So what I believe, at least by 2030s, the domestic consumption of green hydrogen and green hydrogen byproducts will be important for Turkey as well. And I hope you choose Turkish Airlines while coming to Turkey. The airline industry is a big industry in Turkey, and we are really trying to be competitive. And as you know, by the Fit for 55, there are strict regulations regarding the SAF, the Sustainable Aviation Fuel requirements, so that to support our aviation industry, it will be an issue for us to consider as well.
So Turkish Airlines already uses e-kerosene, or?
Actually, in Turkey, there are two major airlines. Turkish Airlines is the biggest one, and the Pegasus as well as the private airline. Early this year, both declared that as a test case, as a pilot case, they use SAF in their domestic flights, actually.
Oh, that's interesting. So maybe also to clarify, when we talk about hydrogen, we also, of course, not only talk about the gas hydrogen, but also about the derivatives, which can be e-kerosene, used for planes, but also methanol and ammoniac. So these are all included. But thank you. Turning to Frederick, I was happy to hear that your index already includes RED II. So what is the reaction to your index? Can you maybe tell us a use case, and how has it been so far welcomed by the public?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think in the end, there is three important parameters as we hear today. There is the production side, there is the regulatory side, and there is the trading side, and these are interlinked. And without regulation, actually, we would not know what green hydrogen is, actually, because this is used for decarbonization efforts. And so our green hydrogen index that is based on purely green power that meets these additionality requirements mentioned in the delegated act of RED II. That's an index that has been appreciated by project developers in and around Austria, and they say these index figures, they give them more certainty when they calculate their projects. What actually is done with the numbers, we don't know this, but from our part, I think the best is that we can provide this information to the industry so that they can work with it and calculate their projects. And I think another important point that I would like to make is that going forward, it will be very important that we not only have like these hydrogen islands, but that we also have an interlinkage of hydrogen production, because the physics matter also for trading. And this is important to reach a higher degree of standardization within this hydrogen trading environment, because if there is only one producer and one off-taker, it's very likely that there will be agreements that will never see any third party. So I think the physical side of things is very important to help to create a traded market and in turn to get an investment signal out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, you are in the center of Europe. You are operating the Central European Gas Hub. You are having a lot of experience with gas. Like, how do you see that this infrastructure that we have today for gas can also be used for hydrogen in the future?
Yeah, I think that's ongoing in Europe. I don't know if the audience is familiar with this, but there is these initiatives, the backbone initiatives. So the big TSOs are sitting together and planning how to repurpose existing natural gas pipelines for hydrogen. And in Austria, there is two big pipelines that are considered important for this initiative. So I think this is, in a way, ongoing, and this will be done because the TSOs, in a way, they work with tariffs, they work with consumers and taxpayers' money. So I think sooner or later we will see here a good development. But I think, as mentioned earlier, the collective effort and the challenges, in a way, to have everybody up to speed in this way. So because there is these different requirements and they all need to be there, that the energy transition with hydrogen is successful.
Yeah. Coming back also to the regulatory atmosphere, Ali, you have mentioned, you introduced us to two of your big projects. I think one was in Paraguay, one also here in Turkey. So you have actually the overview. You can compare a little bit the regulatory situation. So what do you think is missing, or is there anything also in terms of global cooperation which we can learn from each other? Is there any approach to regulation?
The way we approached this was to first understand how to solve the energy side, how to solve the renewable, the green electricity side. So we have been cooperating with project developers for quite some time. And as Emre Bey was saying, in Turkey, I think handling the green energy side isn't a big deal. Turkey has substantial resources. I think one thing that wasn't mentioned is offshore wind. In parts of Europe, particularly countries that are bordering the Northern Sea, there is real offshore development that is going to play into green hydrogen. I think Denmark, Germany, these are major players. Turkey has a similar potential, I think a massive unexploited potential in offshore wind. But even our onshore resources and solar would be able to handle. Internally, there is right now no immediate demand other than by regulatory atmosphere. If we can manage to create an internal market, I think then we have the ability to design smaller projects that have the possibility of meeting, for example, the sustainable airline fuel, SAF. That would be a possibility of creating the smaller hubs that I think hydrogen really needs. And for the larger international market where Europe would be a partner to Turkey and the recipient of most of the hydrogen derivatives. By the way, in my opinion, the hydrogen being shipped as a gas to be used as a natural gas equivalent, I don't see how that plays out. To me, I think it has to be one of the derivatives that could be green ammonia or other Turkish exports that are key right now. But for these larger projects, we need cooperation. We need those price signals. We need them to arrive from our European counterparts. We need we need a better understanding of how much volume is expected, so that as developers we can aim to create projects with sufficient sizes. Right now, from the development perspective, what we have a difficulty in understanding is what would be acceptable from for example, an off-taker. How much would an off-taker require so that we can sign a long-term agreement, similar to a PPA maybe, with that off-taker? Now we are starting to see that through collaboration. But There is no regulatory benchmarks that are guiding us. The same is true for Paraguay as well. There is the possibility to develop the project, and there is an appeal because there are large tracts of land available for solar, and there is the country has almost 99% of green electricity available. Almost the whole electricity is coming from hydroelectric. And it's very cheap in comparison to most of the world. The electricity prices are cheap. So we have that solar addition possibility in Paraguay, but our goal is actually directly buy the electrolyzer and produce the green hydrogen from that point.
But the goal is to produce for the domestic market, or is it to export?
No, it's an export market driven. The idea is that this would be consumed outside of South America. I don't think, as far as I can see, most of the projects that are currently being developed in South America are designed for export markets and not necessarily for internal consumption. We were speaking with Emre Bey. I mean, Turkey has real internal markets. These are for steel. These are for green ammonia. But I don't think in the short run Turkey can handle, the internal markets can handle without any CFDs. The Turkish market cannot handle the price differences. So I don't think from the developer or the investor's point of view, aiming for the local market is a short-term goal, unless, for example, for sustainable airline fuel, there is a regulatory push and smaller projects are starting to be designed in order to address that market that is growing up.
Yes, I mean, we have now talked about Europe, we have talked about Turkey, and a little bit about South America. Jan, you are very active. I think you have been to a conference, or you organized a conference recently in Abu Dhabi, am I right? And you presented there your new association and your new concept. What is the situation there? How do they see the future for green hydrogen? And also, most important, and I would also ask the other panelists, are they only concentrating on exporting, or is that not also a big chance to bring industries using green hydrogen to these regions? But what is your impression?
Well, obviously, the regions in the Middle East are a little bit in the pole position for these new commodities. Why is this? Because you have electricity production for free. You have an environment where you have 360 days of sunshine, and you have enough money available and enough land available to really construct large production. You don't need to go to banks, you just pay it. And then you obviously come to the next point. What are you doing with these 1,500 megawatt solar, which are being built there, already online? You need to think, what can I do with this electricity? What can I do with the green molecules which are produced there? Then you're looking at one hand at logistics, meaning export. I think this is certainly one of the big topics. And we're looking, from a European point of view, we're looking obviously at a lot of imports. We're looking at hydrogen and hydrogen derivative imports, a major scale over the next 10 years, in order to close the supply gap, which is there. There is no other way to do it other than by importing, and that's also why not surprising that, for example, projects in Paraguay only look into, let's say, export, because this is where the market is. The market is currently in Europe. It's being created through the regulatory environment, hopefully, inshallah. But ultimately, in the areas of production, you will have so much production that you cannot all export it. You need to create local markets to offset the risks which are created with these long positions through the assets that are being constructed. And this is why local markets will emerge. And I think, looking a little bit what your question was, does it not also mean that we will see steel production in Saudi Arabia? And the answer is obviously yes. If you think it through, that you have that electricity there, you have the possibility to produce green steel with all the attributes that are required by the respective regulation in the buyers' countries, you'll see it there. So it becomes like a vehicle of development based on the electricity being available for almost for free. So far there is a huge development mechanism that over a longer period of time, obviously none of that is constructed within 5 years, but over the next 15 years, you will see a lot of new industries that will be developed in there because simply with the fact that they can use the green electricity at the given circumstance of this place. Yeah? And we see actually there is great potential for these markets to develop there. But there is also potential here in Turkey. Obviously, Turkey is a large market, it's a bridging market. It has, through CBAM now, all the reasons to act. CBAM creates a new environment insofar as it is exporting European values, if you wish, also targets abroad. So it forces ultimately other countries that are trading with Europe to adapt and to produce accordingly. So insofar there is also, let's say, maybe for a country such as Turkey, where most of the exports go into Europe anyway, let's say really to take the climate issue seriously, to create a climate law that provides for cap and trading scheme for carbon, give carbon a price in Turkey, that ultimately then can link up with the EU trading scheme. So I think Turkey is obviously, because of its situation, much closer to Europe in order to develop all of these mechanisms that we have already developed in Europe.
Yes, Jan, talking about competition, we just said it's not only possible to export hydrogen, but it's also that the consumption moves to where the production is. That's also an option. But if you are there in this region, is Europe the only target they want to export hydrogen to? Are there other regions in the world interested in hydrogen from that region? And is there already a competition?
The answer is, you obviously know the answer. Obviously, Europe is only one of the markets. If you look at the world, it is round, and you look at the Middle East, it's right in the middle between Asia and Europe. So obviously, being from that region, you obviously look into both directions. There is considerable interest to buy these green molecules, just call them green molecules now, in other offset markets, because we are dealing with global compliance buyers that are sitting where the industry is. So ultimately there will be a huge logistics exercise emerging in these countries simply due to the fact that they have the production conditions as they are. And the money to build the infrastructure, because there is no transition without transmission, or the other way around. This is how it is. So ultimately, you need to first create the infrastructure. Once you have the infrastructure, you can actually use that infrastructure for that. So yeah, I think it works in both ways, and there is interest, there is competition. There will be also different prices. There will be a price competition. I think a lot of these features that we currently see in the LNG market, we will see back there in these new markets around hydrogen and its derivatives.
By the way, I'm also very happy to take questions from the audience. Christian. So there's the first question.
Okay, yeah, good morning, and yeah, very interesting panel. Nice wake up. I have one practical question and then one more strategic. So the very practical question is actually to Hassan, I think. Yeah. Paraguay being landlocked, how would you export hydrogen from Paraguay to the world? I don't think that a big tanker can make it down Rio Grande. And the other question is the sheer size of the exercise. I mean, Jan was referring to it, we need massive subsidies. If you look at the 2050 target in Europe, so net zero, and if you look at the current caloric value that is being consumed, how will we get to the size? I mean, yes, there's a lot of projects, a lot of developments. We see the European Hydrogen Bank, we see H2 Global in Germany, we see a couple of other developments. I mean, this is all very nice. Infrastructure is still at a very early stage. We're still figuring out how to actually do it because it's extremely challenging. It's not as easy as initially expected. Compression, pipeline, corrosion, etc. You know it. How do you get to the scale we need to really follow the 2050 path as anticipated? And is hydrogen really, or derivatives thereof, the way to go to get to that sort of scale, or is another alternative solution needed?
Ali, you want to take the Paraguay geographical question?
Okay. Hello, and thank you for the question, Christian. The basic answer is that it requires transport through a pipeline mechanism. There is no, as you mentioned, there are no, as far as I know, small enough barges that can take that ammonia or green ammonia into a nearby port through the rivers. So as you mentioned, the logistics, okay, so this is partly an unanswered question. The initial thought was to do this via a pipeline. But if there is a design for, there are links via rivers connecting non-landlocked access to ports could be possible, but not with the existing green ammonia shipment tankers. As I see, there is nothing smaller than 17,000 tons, as far as we have learned so far. So as you said, that is not going to travel up the river and then back to the sea. So either that's going to be solved through barges, which I don't know how that works, but the answer is a pipeline.
Thank you. And maybe the second question of Christian, I give to Emre. I understood the question that way, that hydrogen is not the only solution for our carbon or decarbonization goals. What is the situation in Turkey? And maybe you can also talk a little bit again about what Jan just mentioned, the CBAM. For those of you who are not familiar with that mechanism, CBAM is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, something which has been invented by the EU to create a level playing field. So basically the CBAM foresees that if you export goods, certain goods, to the EU, you have to pay for CO2 if you do not have a CO2 pricing system or pricing scheme in your region. So the good needs to have a CO2 price tag, and it includes hydrogen. What is the price? So that means hydrogen and its derivatives, and that means that, of course, green hydrogen produced not with fossil fuels is going to be cheaper, and there's an incentive then to export green hydrogen to the EU because it's cheaper than exporting, for instance, methanol or ammoniac produced with fossil fuel. So what is the future, a little bit broader than just hydrogen for decarbonization in Turkey?
Actually, sometime in the future, somewhere after 2030, latest by 2050, my hope is all the energy that we are using is coming either from the electrons produced from renewable energy or from green hydrogen. So if that dream comes true, what I can say, first of all, we need to electrify as much as we can for this decarbonization, because that is the most reasonable thing we should do. So if we can electrify some industries to decarbonize, we should go after that time. And this was happening for time being, because as far as I know, during last year, almost 10,000 megawatts license was given for the industries to produce their own renewable energy. But there are still some industries that we cannot use electrification as a decarbonization. So they really need these hydrogen molecules. So for those industries, we should be considering using green hydrogen or green hydrogen byproducts as a solution of, or if we cannot really transport the green hydrogen, then, if we cannot transport the green electricity, then the green hydrogen comes in the picture, because as we all know, for time being, it's expensive. It is expensive to transport, store, and everything. But from the Turkish perspective, I remember the 80s, there were no natural gas for heating in our home usage. And in 2023, as far as I know, all cities and most of the towns are now using natural gas for heating for home uses. So it means that within a period shorter than 40 years, we convert everything to natural gas. So it's reaching throughout all the homes. It means that if there's a will, finance for that transition, transition for the green hydrogen can be achievable, but it needs some time. And to transport the green hydrogen from Turkey to Europe, I think again the pipelines will play a major role in that respect, because in the short term, just because we are much familiar for the ammonia, how to store it, how to transport it, it looks like the solution for the short term, but in the long term, I think there will be some dedicated green hydrogen pipelines for transporting the green hydrogen produced in Turkey to Europe. That should be the way to use it.
And CBAM, what role does CBAM play for your considerations?
As we all agree, I think the regulations plays an important role. And just because the CBAM will be impacting the industries like steel manufacturing, aluminium, cement, electricity, so they are the major exports of Turkey. So it will expedite the decarbonization of these industries in Turkey as well. And most of the industrial players are developing or working on their plans how to decarbonize, not to be in a disadvantaged position when CBAM is in place.
Yeah. Are there any further questions from the audience? Here. Do we have a microphone?
I have two questions.
Maybe also you can introduce yourself for the
Two questions.
panelists.
One is, what is the status of a standard definition for green hydrogen? And the other one is, what is a price range for green hydrogen? You know that Platts is publishing some figures regarding the price of green hydrogen.
Very good question. Who wants to take the question on standards? Or maybe Frederick, you can tell us how much is your index at the moment?
Well, maybe the standards first. For the European Union, RED II has delegated acts, and these delegated acts exactly foresee the requirements that have to be met in a way for hydrogen to be considered as green hydrogen. So this is defined there. And for the question on the prices, we publish our index on the website. It's free of charge. Everybody can look at it. But the actual number, I don't know now. But I had also a question maybe to Daniel as our moderator, because I think what the talk now is a lot about is a sourcing market at the very beginning. But if we look at the gas market, for example, in Austria we have a churn rate of 5 to 7, depending on the time of the year and the supply conditions. Maybe what do you think when indices will first be used for trading? When will it be used for hedging? Because I think this will be a very important step also for traders to step in, to make their business with hydrogen, and also at this point in time then I think project initiators will have more confidence to start their project.
Thank you for that question, Frederick. A question which I will also later pass on to Jan, but I'm happy to answer that because no surprise, EX also has a hydrogen index, which we have started recently. It's called Hydrix. So we started in May this year. And what is special about this Hydrix, it's actually based on real physical business. So now you are surprised, I can see that, because we were telling you that there is no trade yet, but yes, there is a bit of trade in Germany. So about 1% of green hydrogen, 1% of hydrogen trading in Germany is green, 1%. And what we have done over the last 2 years, we have been in touch with our customers and we were looking for traders. Who are these people out there already buying and selling green hydrogen, and there are some. So they are kind enough to provide us with their prices. So they provide us once a week, every Wednesday, with a price which they have paid for green hydrogen with a delivery, so we're talking physics here, delivery in Germany. So, and this is the only global index I'm aware of which actually reflects physical reality, 1%. So this is the starting point, and this is what you do when you have no market. But if you talk about a little bit vision, what's the next step? Of course, this is not sufficient. The next step is that you have a real auction, that you have an auction for hydrogen, that there are companies auctioning green hydrogen. And there's a big project currently ongoing. It's called H2 Global. It's a German-European initiative. They are buying hydrogen globally, and then they're selling hydrogen within the European Union, and they will do that at our platform. So this is going to take place hopefully by the end of next year, and then watch out, maybe at this conference we can have then the first price. You were asking about prices, the first auction-based price for green hydrogen. And once you have that price, then you can see the development. I mean, most of you probably can imagine what could happen then. You have small markets, island markets, like you have been telling about physics, Frederick, connecting these island markets and the marketplace growing accordingly. So my vision, let's say, is that you have a lot of island markets which are then over time growing together. So you have in the beginning a lot of different auctions all over with different marketplaces, with different market prices. But these are merging together, and then at some point you can consider now it's time for a spot market. And we are talking about hard facts here. And we have a spot market and we have a daily auction, like for electricity, like for gas. And then if you dream further your dream, you can think about hedging. Yeah? We have liquidity in the spot market, you have an underlying, you have the need to financially hedge yourself against the price development, and then you have what you all or many of you are involved in, you have a derivatives market for hydrogen. When is that? I don't know. So far in the future. Maybe we discuss it here at some point. Frederick.
Yes, I can answer the question now.
You can answer it. Okay.
With the price, because I've looked it up on the index. So for 10-year baseload hydrogen, 100% green, now it's at 156 euros, the index. But in general, our indexes provide the price range from 156 to 200 euros. So this is what is calculated depending on the source of the electricity and depending of the delivery time and profile. But of course, this is an indication of a price range, and I think these are not numbers where you say, okay, it's €1 up and down makes a big difference, but it's just in a way something that should give a direction.
Jan, what is your vision for hydrogen trading? And maybe you mentioned it in your introductory remarks. You said we should not make the same mistakes we did in the gas market. And as you are very experienced, you have been witnessing these mistakes. Maybe you can also shed a little bit of light on that.
Well, to be honest, Daniel, my dream is not so far away from yours. I think you have very well described what we need to do. Any price signal lives of the underlying, and that is physical. So you need to have the physical substance in order to give credibility and strength to that price signal. We will have multiple price signals, multiple, in Europe. There will be one in Rotterdam, there will be one in Austria, there will be one in Germany, etc. So we'll have multiple price signals, which is not a bad thing, because ultimately they will converge, and the prevailing price signal will then become the price signal for the region. We've seen it in gas here with the TTF, that is today the prevailing price signal for natural gas in Europe. It will nothing will be different for hydrogen in the future. So we know exactly how it goes. But you know, before you get all the salamis, you need to have one salami, and then you can slice it. So this is what we, I think, should do now: slice the salami in very thin little pieces and sell them, because then you're getting many transactions out of a single salami, and this gives then a little bit more of a price signal, a credible price signal that has an underlying from various counterparts. But what obviously is required is to sit together with also buyers and sellers that actually this can be created. And I think this is probably what should be happening now. Now Central European Gas Hub, I was very much involved in the very beginning. There also there was no price in the beginning. So ultimately what was done there at the time, there was just simply agreements with brokers to basically anonymize data and send it on a daily basis. And that was then the basis for the so-called Baumgarten day-ahead reference price, which was created at the very beginning of ZEC. So, and it has worked. It has worked. This is how you do it. Ultimately, you assemble the information that is coming from the OTC market, you anonymize it, you create the price for the next day, and this is how I think you should also work with new commodities. Why would it be different? Insofar, what you said earlier with all these insular markets initially, and multiple price references, and all the steps you described are exactly the ones to take. So, nothing more to add from my side.
Yeah. Are there any further questions from the audience? No? I think we have also then come to the end of our first panel. It was a real pleasure. Unless there is something, last words you want to mention. It was a real pleasure. I think we covered a lot. We covered infrastructure. We covered the different regions. We discovered how a market could develop. We talked a lot about indices. So I think that is also something we can further give information on. There are a lot of indices out there, so happy to talk about that also. So thank you to my great panelists. Thank you for making the effort. Thank you to coming here to Istanbul and joining our fantastic conference. Thank you very much, and thank you.
And thank you to our fantastic moderator as well, and our distinguished panelists. Let's have a quick moment for a quick photo session, please. May I invite you kindly to stand up and right in front of the stage in the memory of our first panel of the day, the third of the conference. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to have a 20 minutes networking break, and we will proceed with the second panel of the day. Thank you very much. See you in 20 minutes, please.